The sun was barely up when Clara Wynne rode home. The prairie still slept beneath a quilt of pale mist, the grass whispering in the wind like secrets too heavy to carry. Her old bay mare breathed clouds into the chill dawn, the saddle creaking like tired bones. She hadn't been home in 5 years, not since the war ended, and she'd come back with more scars than medals. Folks said she'd seen too much for a woman. Some said she'd lost her softness somewhere between the smoke and the screaming. The town called her Sergeant Wynne once. But now, they said poor Clara. The sound of it cut deeper than bullets ever had. The general store bell jingled weakly as she stepped inside. Dust motes hung in the air, dancing in slanted morning light. A few townsfolk turned, muttering quiet as tumbleweeds. Ruby May, the saloon keeper, gave her a smile that almost felt human. "Clara Wynne, back from the fields of hell," she said softly, pressing a loaf of bread into her hands. Others didn't meet her eyes. "She don't talk much no more," whispered one. "War'll make anyone strange," said another. Clara's fingers trembled as she counted her coins. When she looked up, she caught Marshal Jed Larkin watching her from the door, a man with eyes as steady as old oak, hat shadowing a face worn honest by the years. He didn't speak, just tipped his brim as if saying, "I still see you." But she didn't want to be seen. Not yet. She rode back to her small ranch on the edge of the pines. The wind there sounded different, less judgmental. The boards of the old fence creaked under her touch, each one like a heartbeat from another life. She lit a lantern and sat on the porch that night, watching the prairie fade into blackness, remembering faces that never came home. They said the plains heal all wounds, she thought. But mine came home with me. A few days later, on a quiet morning swollen with fog, she took her mare north past the tree line where the grass gave way to pine and shadow. That's when she saw it. A pale shimmer moving between the trees. At first she thought it was a ghost. Then it stepped into the light, an albino horse, ribs sharp as fence slats, mane tangled and dirty, eyes wide and unblinking. Around its neck hung a length of rusted chain, tethered to a tree. The creature shivered, breath trembling like smoke. Clara dismounted slowly, boots sinking in damp leaves. Her heart kicked against her ribs, not from fear, but memory. That sound of rattling metal. It was too much like the battlefield, like the clink of shackles she once freed from wounded men. A scrap of paper fluttered against the horse's neck. She reached for it. The note was written in a jagged, angry hand. "Whoever finds him, beware." Cursed beast! The wind carried the words into silence. Clara looked at the animal. Bones, scars, terror. But in those pale eyes, she saw something familiar. A creature still alive, despite everything meant to break it. "Easy now," she whispered, her voice the same soft tone she once used for dying soldiers. The horse didn't move. She stepped closer. Her hand touched his muzzle, rough and cold. The horse exhaled, slow and shuddering, and in that breath something changed, a tremor of trust between two beings long exiled from mercy. She pulled a small knife from her boot and cut the chain. The sound it made was sharp and final, like a door unlocking in both their hearts. By the time the sun rose, she was leading the horse home. The town noticed. They always did. By noon, whispers crawled through Main Street like wildfire. Clara Wynne brought home the ghost horse. Things cursed. Killed its last owner. "She's lost her wits, poor thing," Ruby May brought word that evening. "They say it belonged to Silas Creed, that land baron who vanished after the flood. Some think the horse dragged him under." Clara just shrugged, brushing the horse's tangled mane. "Curses ain't real," she said. Ruby frowned. "You sure about that, honey? Some things stay haunted." When night fell, Clara couldn't sleep. She sat by the barn door watching the animal. His white coat gleamed like moonlight caught in smoke. He stood still, head bowed, as if remembering too much. And when the wind rustled through the pines, the chains she'd cut clinked faintly where they lay in the dirt, a reminder of how pain leaves echoes even after it's gone. In the mornings, she worked quietly. Washed his wounds, fed him oats softened in warm water, talked to him about nothing, or maybe everything. She named him Ghostlight, for the way his color seemed to catch the dying sun. One afternoon, Marshal Jed rode out to her ranch. He dismounted with slow care, the kind that comes from not wanting to spook something fragile. "Heard you got yourself a new friend," he said. Clara nodded, keeping her hand on the horse's neck. "He's not cursed," she said firmly. "He's just been chained too long." Jed studied her a moment, then gave a quiet nod. "Maybe you both have." She didn't answer, but something in her chest shifted, like a frozen river breaking free. That evening, after Jed left, Clara leaned against Ghostlight's shoulder, feeling the rise and fall of his breath against her arm. He turned his head slightly, pressing his muzzle to her cheek. It wasn't affection, not exactly, just recognition. Two creatures who'd known captivity and still dared to stand. She looked out at the horizon, the sun sinking behind the hills in a wash of amber and dust. The air was still, heavy with the smell of earth and hay. In the silence, her thoughts whispered, "Freedom don't come when someone opens the gate. It comes when you stop fearing what waits beyond it." And for the first time in years, Clara Wynne felt the faint warmth of peace, fragile, uncertain, but real enough to hold. The days that followed were uneasy, the kind of calm that trembles before a storm. Clara noticed footprints by her gate one morning, deep in the mud. Men's boots, fresh. Someone had been watching. That afternoon, Marshal Jed rode up the dirt path, his hat pulled low against the glare. Ghostlight lifted his head as if he already knew what was coming. "Clara," Jed said, voice rough with concern, "some of Creed's old hands are in town. They're claiming that white horse was theirs, and they want him back." Clara brushed the pale mane from Ghostlight's eyes. "They had their chance to be decent," she said quietly. "Now they want ownership over what they broke." Jed looked at her for a long moment. "They ain't good men. Don't face 'em alone." But Clara just nodded once. That soldier's stubbornness still stitched into her soul. By dusk, the rumor had spread like wind through wheat. "The cursed horse is back. Clara Wynne's harboring bad luck." People stared when she rode into town for supplies. Mothers pulled children closer. Men spat dust at her boots. Ruby May met her eyes over the bar counter later that evening. "Honey," she said softly, "some folks don't need proof to burn a witch." Clara smiled faintly. "I've been burned before." And she walked out into the cold with her head high, the last light of day setting fire to her hair. That night, clouds gathered low and heavy. Thunder murmured across the plains like something waking up angry. She didn't see them ride in. 4 shadows slipped from the trees just before midnight, rough men with whiskey on their breath and greed in their hearts. Their leader, a wiry man with a scar like a river down his cheek, spat into the dirt. "We'll take the horse, miss," he drawled. "Ain't yours to keep." Clara stepped onto the porch barefoot, holding her old rifle. Her voice didn't shake. "He belongs to no one." They laughed, sharp, mocking sounds that echoed into the dark. "Lady, you think a bit of soldierin' makes you a hero?" She lifted the rifle, aimed low. "No," she said, "but it taught me where to stand." The scarred man swung his leg off his horse, taking a step forward. That's when Ghostlight shrieked, a wild, heart-rattling sound that ripped through the night. He reared high, white against the black sky, eyes blazing like lightning. The men stumbled back, spooked. Clara fired once, not to kill, but to warn. The shot cracked through the storm's breath. The men fled into the pines, their curses fading like ghosts. When silence returned, her hands trembled. She dropped the rifle. The rain began, sudden and merciless. Moments later, Jed appeared through the storm, his coat soaked, horse panting. "You all right?" he shouted over the downpour. She nodded, breath hitching. "They won't be back." He dismounted, walking closer, the lantern light flickering over his face. "You still fight alone, Clara?" Her eyes softened. "It's the only way I learned." For a moment, neither spoke. Just the rain, the smell of wet cedar, the faint tremor in Ghostlight's breath. The next day, Doc Harlan Pike came by after hearing the commotion. He examined Ghostlight, running his old hands along the horse's neck, murmuring low. Then he paused, frowning. "This horse's back is scarred," he said. "Old wounds, not from beating, from dragging, heavy loads." He looked at Clara. "I heard stories. That Baron Creed used this beast to haul his dead laborers into the ravine during the flood. Men said the horse wouldn't move for him after that. Creed whipped him half to death, then left him to die chained to a tree." Clara went still. Her stomach turned. "So that's the curse," she whispered. "Not evil, just memory." Doc nodded slowly. "Some memories'll break a body in two." When he left, Clara stayed beside Ghostlight for hours, one hand resting on his trembling flank. "You were made to carry things no soul should," she murmured. "But you're free now." "Same as me." The days softened after that. Jed came by more often, helping her mend the fences, fixing the roof that sagged from years of neglect. He didn't talk much, but his quiet company was a balm. One evening, as the sun bled gold across the fields, they worked side by side, hammering boards in rhythm. "You ever think about leaving?" he asked. Clara looked toward the horizon. "I already did. What's left is coming back." Their hands brushed when she passed him a nail. He didn't move away. Neither did she. That night, she took Ghostlight out to ride for the first time. The townsfolk watched from their porches, silent. The white stallion moved like mist through the twilight, strong again, proud. The whispers stopped. Heads bowed instead. In the days that followed, the story changed. The cursed beast became the blessed survivor. The broken veteran became the woman who tamed the ghost horse. And the town, in its strange, small way, began to heal too. Then came the storm. It rolled in from the west one evening, black and swollen, thunder splitting the horizon. Clara rushed to the barn to calm the horses, Ghostlight stamping nervously in his stall. Wind howled through the cracks like a warning. Then, the flash. Lightning struck the roof. The world exploded in flame. Clara grabbed a blanket, ran through smoke so thick it stung her lungs. She unlatched stall doors, shouting through coughs. Ghostlight reared, terrified, his white coat turning orange in the blaze. "Easy, boy. Easy!" she cried. The roof groaned above her. A beam crashed down. Jed's voice pierced the roar. "Clara!" He was there, bursting through the fire, coat aflame, eyes wild with fear. He threw his arms around her, pulling her toward the open air. Ghostlight followed, bolting through the broken door as the barn collapsed behind them. Outside, rain poured again, heavy, saving rain. Clara fell to her knees in the mud, coughing, clutching Ghostlight's muzzle. His breath came hard, his eyes wide, but he was alive. "You're safe," she whispered, forehead pressed to his. Jed knelt beside her, touching her shoulder. "So are you." For the first time, she let herself cry. Not the soldier's silent kind, but the kind that cleanses. The rain hid her tears, or maybe joined them. When dawn came, smoke still curled from the blackened ruins. But the air was fresh, washed clean. Weeks later, Clara rebuilt. Jed helped, his laughter softening the edges of her silence. Ghostlight grazed freely in the pasture, mane shimmering beneath the sun. The town brought wood, tools, even bread, small offerings of redemption. Ruby May came by with a pie and said, "Town talk's different now, honey." "You made him believe again," Clara smiled, faint, but real. One evening, as the prairie stretched endless before her, she stood beside Jed watching Ghostlight run, his hooves lifting golden dust into the sunset. Their hands brushed again. No need for words this time. The silence between them had turned into something sacred. The sky burned crimson and violet. The land felt at peace, and in the distance, the wind carried a whisper, not of fear, but of freedom. Clara's voice drifted softly. Like the closing lines of an old memory, "Some chains ain't made of metal. Some are born of memory and shame. But love, the quiet kind, the patient kind, it teaches even the haunted how to heal." The camera would linger there, pulling back slowly, a woman, a man, and a white horse beneath the endless sky, all three reborn under the forgiving light of the plains. And somewhere, in that wide, silent country, the past finally laid itself down.